Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the channel. If this is the first time you are seeing me, please consider liking and subscribing. We're real tech for real people. Today's video is actually going to be a spoiler-free, or mostly spoiler-free, review of the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, which aired tonight on HBO Max. It's about 2:30 in the morning. I just got home from watching it at my uncle's house, so special shout out to Robert and my cousin Nick, which is his son. We watched the entire 4-hour film, and I had to come home and do a review on it. Though I don't typically do movie reviews, I will be doing one tonight because I thought it was really an interesting time for filmmaking, and it was a monumental achievement to have it even released. And here are my thoughts on it. Alright guys, I don't do many movie reviews on the channel, though there's about 900 videos, and what I'm doing now with the channel is I'm not letting anything keep me in a box. I'll be doing just whatever I feel I want to do, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Some of you may enjoy more of the TV side, the video game side, the tech therapy side, but movies have always been a part of that, especially with the immersion of our TVs and our projectors and our surround sound. So my eyes are a little bloodshot. It's a little bit late, but I felt passionate enough about this film to want to come home and share my thoughts with you guys. It will be mostly spoiler free. I won't be revealing anything that's not already kind of known. Before the film starts, or before the review starts, I have to give a special shout out to Ray Fisher, who is the actor who plays Cyborg. The biggest change of this film for me was his inclusion, or his complete removal from the newer Justice League. So what I'll be saying here too is I'll be saying old Justice League versus newer being the Zack Snyder cut. Even though he was working on the film previously and was replaced, we're going to be talking about the Joss Whedon version as being the older from this point forward. Quickly, some context. With the Justice League, obviously that followed Man of Steel, which had Christopher Nolan involved in it as well. Had a very serious tone, a very bleak tone. That film was panned in some ways for being too bleak, especially the fight at the end, the deaths that would have been there. They changed the tone a little bit with Batman versus Superman. And then we went into Justice League. Zack Snyder was removed from that film after the unfortunate death of his daughter, and there were some rumors that him and his wife, who produced the film as well, were being removed anyway. So I'm not sure about why that was, but he was quickly replaced by Joss Whedon from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the Avengers films, and the movie was completely transformed. It wasn't very long, and I personally found Justice League to be unwatchable. I think at that point I was already personally fatigued with superhero films anyway, and I did not like the change in tone from Man of Steel to Batman vs. Superman, which was chopped up a little bit too. And then once we got to Justice League, you can see where they were trying to be like Marvel. And there is no fear of politics in this review or any of those views. What I will bring up a few times, though, is the executive interruptions, or their, the higher ups of film industries always interrupting or interfering. So executive interference, if you will. By the way, my videos are long form. This will probably be about 25 minutes long, so I apologize. If you want short films, I'm not the guy for you. I'm not the guy for you. I apologize. But the proper context for me when it comes to Justice League or even DC was you had Batman Begins, you had The Dark Knight, you had Dark Knight Rises, and they were on fire. You know, when I first saw those films, they weren't really superhero films. They were films. Christopher Nolan had a more bleak outlook. It wasn't all about this humor, the slapstick humor that you see in every film today. Everything has to be for everyone and be funny. And to me, any film, I don't care if it's The Godfather or Citizen Kane, I'm looking for immersion. into your world. I'm looking to forget about everything else and watch your film. And if I want to be immersed in whatever characters, it doesn't have to be supernatural or science fiction or whatever. And, Christopher Nolan movies had that. And then Marvel, which ended up with Iron Man, Doctor Strange, all these ragtag, Captain America. Those of us that grew up on comics, now I am a comic book fan. It's why these movies are a love-hate thing for me. Marvel took the scraps of what was left and made Iron Man in those films. And they built it piece by piece. If you remember in the Hulk film with Ed Norton, Tony Stark was in at the end of that film. Those films were constructed over long periods of time. And they took a lot of risks, especially in Robert Downey Jr., which, is the best recovery story in history. And they built this amazing franchise. DC was actually ahead with those other 3 films and weren't worried about Marvel too much until Marvel started rising. And I think what happened with DC, instead of building their franchise one piece at a time, they went from, Man of Steel, which I liked personally. I enjoyed Man of Steel. I enjoyed the Krypton scenes, even though they were a bit Avatar-ish. Russell Crowe. I liked Henry Cavill as Superman. I felt that he has that hopeful, gentle but aggressive, strong nature to him. I thought Lois Lane was fine. Lawrence Fishburne was in that. But at the end, it did get a little too Dragon Ball Z-ish, which we saw like in the Matrix films, a little too much, but it was still very good. The product placement in that film, as well as the Marvel films. I don't need to see what cars you're driving, but that product placement in that film totally pulled me out. Again, immersion. So we're 5 minutes in. We're not even talking about Justice League yet, but it will all fit together. So watching Batman vs. Superman and being a Batman fan, the Frank Miller books, the graphic novels, and seeing how they crammed in Wonder Woman. They crammed in, obviously, Batman. But they took 2 or 3 of the same stories with Doomsday, all of a sudden, Death of Superman. They took all these concepts that were in separate books and just mashed them together. And any one of those concepts could have been their own film. They would have been better off at doing that. But that was kind of the beginning of their problems. I didn't love the casting of Ben Affleck in that film, but I grew with it. It was fine. And then Justice League starting to get worked on. And, he's finished with the movie. They're in the editing process. He gets let go. Joss Whedon comes in to save the day. Now, I'll say something about Joss Whedon and a lot of modern filmmakers. Many of us feel like, well, he's great. He did this and this. And the director that just did Wonder Woman, well, she has an Oscar and she did this and this. Those are 2 projects. 2 or 3 projects, and all of a sudden, whether it's J.J. Abrams or these other directors, are all of a sudden brought to like this Spielberg status after doing a few pictures. There are such things as one-hit wonders. Zack Snyder, I like his films. 300 was excellent. I don't love all of the overly stylized slow motion fights that he's always done, but I do like his style. Being a home theater nut, I don't love the false grain and all of that. However, I do like his style. I do like his camera work. I do like mostly his soundtracks are fine that go with his films. But that said, watching Justice League, that movie was horrible. Everything from talking about Ray Fisher and the kid that played the Flash. I'm not going to go through all their names, but you literally turned this character of Cyborg, into the most vanilla, no frills, nothing story. And I really didn't like the character and the first, or the Flash for that matter. And there was all this forced comedy. I can tell you a million of the lines that were in the film that were supposed to be made for laughs, where Batman and Superman are looking at each other and he's like, I don't not like you. And when they're pulling the boxes apart, he's like, I really want to stay alive. I like being alive. Things that just fell really flat. And there was no camaraderie or chemistry between any of the characters, be it Aquaman, be it Cyborg, Flash, Wonder Woman. It was just forced together. It never felt organic. And that was the biggest problem with that film. bad CG. Steppenwolf was not a character that was even remotely, not only did it not look good, it just had no real direction or motivation to do anything that he was doing. He wasn't impressive. He wasn't terrifying. Even the winged creatures, the kind of drones that he has, were not menacing at all. They were easily dispatched. And the fluctuation of powers, where, Wonder Woman's unstoppable, but then stoppable. Aquaman, they almost had nothing to do. Aquaman did very little in the original Justice League. Flash did even less. Cyborg did even less. So why I'm telling you all of this backstory is the executives getting in and changing and trying to be more Marvel. Things needed to be more colorful, more funny. They couldn't be bleak. Even though Superman's dead and the world is in total crisis, you can't be bleak. That's an executive jumping in saying, we need more comedy, be more Iron Man, be more this, be more that. You can see it all over the film. You can see it all over the Star Wars films. You can see it all over every film today where some executives saying, look, get rid of that, add this. We need more comedy, even if it's not appropriate. So you don't want everything to be doom and gloom. But getting to Justice League now at 10 minutes in is the movie. Talk about wonderment. The movie's 4 hours long. I watched it on a projector, and a couple glasses of wine, ate some dinner, watched the film. And I've had a hard time watching shows lately, being engaged, being home, and it flew by for me. I actually will tell you, I did not take any breaks. I watched the movie all the way through. I have not felt that way since Lord of the Rings. Not The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Very different films. But I was caught up in some wonderment, and I was immersed. Starting out where the original, where Batman vs. Superman ended, it shows you the reverb. It shows you that there are consequences to his death. It makes you miss him as the film starts. And it gives you the backstory of, obviously, we all know with Diana being Wonder Woman, showing her and, the Amazonians. But the Flash's backstory. And he's still silly in this role, but it somehow has a different contrast now. He's silly, but he's not silly with them all being silly. It's not cringy. He's actually still pretty funny. But the way they film him, he's a good-looking guy. He has the cheekbones. He has the look. He looks serious. And the Justice League of Joss Whedon, he's a clown with barely any powers. Go save somebody and come back. In this film, you're watching his powers fleshed out. And you're seeing a character that's unsure of himself, a character who again, still has a presence, who still looks good on camera, the way they angle him, the way he's running. It's not this silly sidekick that they turned him into. Aquaman's introduction, so much better. Showing parts of, the original, or what's to come, actually, with Willem Dafoe and, unfortunately, his girl Amber Heard, who's being pulled out of her own movie. But you see why he is the way he is. You see that where he is in his own area. You see that his people and the Amazonians work together. So when they do all meet, even Darkseid, you have to talk about Darkseid. I know you've seen him in the trailers. It's not like the Thanos character where they kind of showed little bits of him. He's in the film, and he's awesome. But, the main difference is Steppenwolf, his armor, or his skin, how he looks without his armor, the emotion that he has. He's fearful. He's powerful. They talk a little bit about why he's on the wrong side of Darkseid. It's all about motivation, story, writing. Why do I care about this character? Why do I... Steppenwolf in the other film was just generic. I mean, beyond generic. We had people in God of War to look better than that as far as characters. So he has motivation. He has a voice, his movements, he's menacing, he's powerful. He does struggle. The drones that they have in this seem to be touched up. It could be simple color grading. It's got a more muted color palette. It looks more drab. It's a good-looking film that when the sparks and the explosions pop. But the color palette is more realistic. Excuse me, in Aquaman's kingdom, the water's not crystal clear. It's got a muddy look to it, a more organic look to it. But you get to see his character's introduction. And you get to see, it doesn't just immediately happen like it does in the Joss Whedon or the older version. Again, the Flash, much better character. Want to know more about that character. Showed me a little bit more of his dad. But Ray Fisher, this guy who is now petitioning and really struggling with his career. I feel bad because I'm not sure he'll have a career. What a presence he had. I mean, his presence, his physical presence, he's a young athlete. They don't just show this little snippet in Justice League before where his dad from Cyberdyne Systems, turns him into, the mother box does this and he turns into Cyborg. This shows you where he got his edge from. And to the point, guys, that when Justice League, he had no personality. He seemed a little upset, and then he was just there, and he was the computer guy. You're the robot, you're the computer guy. In this film, he's one of the central characters. The film, in many ways, surrounds him. And the folly for many of these action superhero films, especially these team-up films, is giving them something to do. His powers are necessary. They're needed. But not only that, he can fight. Flash's powers are needed. He's not just running in and pushing somebody out of the way. He is used, and adding the Kryptonian ship more. There's a reason that Miles, I'll call him Miles Bennett because I don't know the actor's name that plays a Cyborg's father. His motivation, his family, how Cyborg became, it wasn't just this accident where he had the mother box. The mother boxes alone, how they're delivered in battle in the beginning, and the characters that were with. There's these three characters that are carrying the boxes, and what that motivation is, how they were split up, how they were given to each side. It wasn't this Lord of the Rings battle, but it was interesting to the point that I wanted to see that battle. They showed Ares, they showed Hercules. Now some of that was also in the film. I suggest you watch the original Justice League before you watch this cut. But the direction, the story, the writing. But Ray Fisher, shout out to you, my friend. That kid probably could have been a star. They cut out his entire performance, his motivation, his skills. More importantly, the scenes of him without being Cyborg, the scenes where his family. And the thing I would say about Marvel, and Marvel was able to give you a tenderness and not make you kind of weepy, but it had a little bit of that Pixar magic where you felt emotion. You could find yourself feeling a little caught up in things and a little bit sad. In this film, I felt that several times. Whether, albeit Superman's loss, and they make you really feel Superman's loss. They make you really miss him the entire film. And then when he does arrive, which I'm not spoiling anything, it's so earned. You don't see Batman's suit for the first few hours. And that longing, that period of time of giving everybody else's backstory, when he shows up in the suit and you see Superman, you wanted it, you missed it. Where in these other films, it's like immediately, I'm back, which was stupid to have him killed off in the first place. But that's another topic. But Ray Fisher, his entire character is central to the entire story, to the point to where it can't work without him. They completely removed him. You see him before he's Cyborg. In the other film, he's literally Cyborg. His outfit is the CG doesn't even match his body. His suit is so much better. It can do so many things. He can fight. So Ray Fisher, sorry. I mean, I can't believe how I could not under. I guess my thing is, I can't imagine what it'd be like to be cast in something like that, to then have it completely ripped away. And the camaraderie between all the characters, Aquaman, Flash, Wonder Woman. There becomes this organic feel to them where they care about each other and they doubt each other and they mess up. It's not just this laughter, slap on the back, stupid stuff. The bank scene in the beginning of the film, oh my God, the way that was filmed, the way Wonder Woman moves, it was less of that slow motion. You could see where she needed to be brutal. The violence, it's rated R. The film is very violent. There's a lot of blood. I mean, not crazy violent, but it was welcome. It shows you how they took a darker film and then completely stripped it up to make it more Marvel-like and completely diminishing what it is. Lois Lane, showing how much she's struggling without Superman. And first, you don't know how long it's been since he's been gone, but it's been recent. It had that like 9/11 New York vibe where they're mourning their hero. There's banners everywhere. Where in the original, it was like they completely got rid of the character and then yanked him back. And seeing Henry Cavill without all that stupid CG done to his face, first of all, seeing everybody in shape is not, after the pandemic and all of us being a little bit heavier, watching that movie and eating a little bit, you're like, wow, I gotta get back in the gym watching these guys in this film. But seeing him as Superman, you're like, wow, he has that face. That again, that sweet but strong, and the way he's brought back is similar but completely different. The fighting is different. A lot of the lines that, a lot of us were like, oh, the cringy stuff is all gone. The fight scenes in between are excellent. The set pieces, the machinery that Batman uses, his vulnerability. Also in this film, Ben Affleck did a great job where he's not just handling business, he's vulnerable. He knows he's in the wrong power-wise, he can't hang. But you see him looking nervous. You see Ben Affleck actually acting. He's a talented guy. Excellent. Tons of Easter eggs for fans. From the tank that Batman has that you'll see in the comics with Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight. That menacing tank. There's a lot of Easter eggs for fans. There's characters that show up in some of the fights that I won't spoil for you that are in the comics. You see that they're moving forward. You can see what they had planned. This film, to me, can hang with any of the Avengers films. It wasn't quite Infinity War, but it can hang with the others. But it was the wow factor, the wonderment, the combat. And the combat being so deliberate, you can just feel the power and the explosions, and I had many times, wow, and the color palette not having that random purple stuff. There's no. I'll give you an example. Even when they're in Chernobyl essentially, and they're building this fortress. There's a reason they're building that fortress, and the other cut. It's just there, and there's this random purple stuff chasing everybody. They're chasing this random Russian family, which gave... My point is, in that film, they clearly gave each person something to do. Keep them busy. You go do this, you go do that. This was less that. Everybody interacts and saves each other and fights and hangs in there. And you do have that feeling at times, or maybe they're not going to make it, even though they're gonna. But Steppenwolf is menacing, awesome villain in this because he has motivation. Darkseid looks really cool. I thought Steppenwolf's presence was amazing. You had the underlings. You could see, Darkseid's planet. You can see the motivation, what he's looking for, why he's there. And I was blown away by it. I was super impressed by it. I was very happy. And the wonderment that I haven't felt in the theater in many years, I felt here Really enjoyed it. The effects were good, very good. The fight scenes were great. Again, the longing of these characters, the interaction with Superman, how he struggles, the emotion he shows, not just where he shows up and he doesn't know who he is. Pet Cemetery, all these random things. This was more. You could see where he wouldn't know where he was. He was sad. Their relationship, you get almost teary. Now, the product placement's still there. Obviously, Mercedes is in the movie. But it was very good. The writing was very good. But the Ray Fisher cyborg story, this could be his story. And it was completely ripped out. And it's a shame. Even Aquaman's story was really diminished. And, so let's talk about the not great points. It is obviously very long. There is some jumping back and forth. That's a lot of the mother boxes, again, really quickly going back into them. They have their own fears and emotions, and they will show you things you're afraid of. So there is some jumping around, which are great scenes, by the way. They do tie in the other films wonderfully. There is no Richard Donner Superman 2 where it seems a little choppy. It's beautifully done. They spent money on it, clearly. But anybody like Zack Snyder that has too much freedom, scenes can be too long, like this video. Obviously, you have me doing this video. How long is this video? There's nobody telling me to shorten it up. But there's kind of like, not Ridley Scott, but, movies like Man on Fire, some of the panning shots can feel too slow. Now, I'm bringing up a film like Man on Fire, which was actually Tony Scott, not Ridley Scott. But the movie's so visual. Love the film, by the way. But sometimes even just walking around a car and the little nuances of closing a lighter or a knife or whatever, as much as it's nice on first viewing, those are very long scenes. A lot of the scenes with the Amazons, a lot of scenes where there was a lot of characters that you're never going to see again, that they spent time on, where there was almost too much world building. And I can totally see where executives sat there. Now, you're trying to watch this film, be as objective as possible, but think about if you are somebody cutting out the fat. I can totally see where executives are like, well, who is this? I don't know who this person is, especially with the Amazonians, as they had characters that were together for thousands of years. And there's a little too much of that screen time where it's just deliberately they'll take 15 seconds for someone to put a spear down. That stuff drags out. Some of the flash scenes are long and really dragged out. The music isn't always matching well, meaning it doesn't always fit the moment. There's a scene where the Flash is rescuing a girl. It's like the whole song is playing. That stuff, as much as it was visually intriguing, having somebody look for 15 seconds can get long. Some of those moments were tedious, but that's his style. He's visual that way. It's just hard over 4 hours. Again, the music was either like the crazy dubstep music, which I like in the gym, but don't always like in my movies. And then you had some classic music that was there. The fight scenes, much better. Superman's fight scenes, much better. Steppenwolf's fighting at the end, much better. Darkseid, all that stuff, amazing. I have very, very few complaints at all. The pacing was very good. Even the epilogue, which I thought was going to drag, had its point, but 4 hours, long, very long. It could have been a couple different shorts. I'll probably watch it in pieces, but that's really my only complaint is just some of the very long, deliberate shots where he's spending way too much time panning from one moment to another. But for the most part, it wasn't redundant. Really well done. The sound effects sounded great. The picture quality was very good. Again, seeing it on a projector, though, the grain filter wasn't as obnoxious as it is in a lot of his other films if you're watching it on an OLED or an LED. But the effects had punch. But most importantly was the combat, the writing, the motivation, and I will say this, the film is bleak. It is a dark film. And I mentioned earlier the robbery in the beginning. when you watch the film the first time, you have no idea what they're doing. In this, you see the character. He's from Game of Thrones. He plays Bolton in the Game of Thrones. But like that character, and he's got hostages. And Wonder Woman breaking in. And that's interesting, too, with Wonder Woman, is that in her film, her own film, and in these films, it reminds me of Angelina Jolie in Tomb Raider, where every shot of her is like, you know, it doesn't have to, you know, in this film, she's more fierce. When she looks mad before she fights. Same with Superman. There's parts where he's understanding, and then he's, in those other films, everything was very like, you know, it's like almost like these modeling shots. And it doesn't match with the action. In that scene, she's brutal. And the fighting is brutal. And there's swearing in it. And there's cursing in it. There's violence in it. There's headshots in it. And even the battles, the smashing, it's all a lot of wow. I loved it. I thought it was excellent. I would own it. I hope it's a win for us fans who have become almost hated in our own films. Just everything's against what we want to see. And it's more about these executives and what they want to see and what they think they want to see. I can tell that this film was very dark. It should be. It's supposed to follow the death of Superman. Of course, it's dark. Everyone's missing something. They're preparing for this oncoming battle. But that slapstick comedy that the Avengers or Marvel was able to get away with to a degree, those films got a little silly for me. And then by the time Endgame came around, got kind of ridiculous. Ant-Man on its own was fine. Those other films, but they're headed that way anyway. They lose me there. I think it should be appropriate that the film's dark because it's a dark time. You can still add organic comedy where it's the same comedy we experience in our own lives versus it being like the goofy sidekick who's there for comic relief. But the Ray Fisher character also reminds me very much of the Finn character in Star Wars. Featured in trailers, but then completely taken out of their own film. But the Ray Fisher character, was egregious, that he was completely removed. And even, like, again, I mentioned his armor is so much better in this. The animation is better. Definitely watch the first film and then watch this film. This video itself is not going to be edited. I won't put pictures of anybody up on the screen. I'm filming this late. I'm going to cut it and just send it out. It probably will not do well, but I love doing this kind of commentary, so you're going to see more of it. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and no one's watching this part of it. This is the end where I tell you guys I love you. Thank you so much for being part of the community and family. I strongly recommend this film, but do me a favor first. Give Man of Steel a watch, because they really connect Man of Steel well here. Give Batman v Superman a watch. And then, again, it's a lot of watching to do. Make sure you watch the original Justice League cut first of Joss Whedon, and then watch this. Because if you watch this without knowing the context of that, this will feel like an ego overblown film. Where you look at this film, think about what this film was competing with. It was competing with the Avengers. It was competing with what you thought Infinity War was going to be. That's why it's so epic and full. It might be too full, but unlike a lot of other directors' cuts, everything that was put back in the film felt ultra necessary. And again, the cyborg character ended up being one of my favorite characters in this film. His story, his motivation, the way it was filmed made this film where he was nothing. He was completely generic in that last film. And that should say a lot to you about what the executives want and what they think you need and what they think you want as a consumer. This film was a win for us fans and consumers. Don't get me wrong, they're making money off it. But hopefully, with all that's happening with these films bombing, and they'll maybe listen to the fans for once and try to be true to the source material. The writers are out there, and this was fantastic. I will definitely give it a A+. Go see it. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, guys. Love you. Take care.